how to feel safe in relationships and in family dynamics. This was where the conversation went in my last Dance Polarity call. And it's an interesting one. It's one that I've experienced myself, how to create and maintain safety in family dynamics, and how the dynamics that we experience in our childhood and growing up, and that we live in our family dynamics, often gets portrayed and repeated in our relationship dynamics as well. And especially when we're still living with family members, or we spend a lot of time with them, it often doesn't afford the opportunity to resolve the issues in a way that is conducive and positive. Because if we're unable to maintain healthy boundaries and unable to maintain an air of safety and emotional regularity in our family dynamics, then if we're continuously dropped into emotional dysregularity, how can we develop the tools that we need to ensure our emotional safety? I've used this analogy before for myself, and I'm not sure if it's one that I've shared publicly, but I think of it as being in relationship, whether in partnership or in family dynamic, is kind of like emotional sparring. It's kind of like being continually punched in the face emotionally. And I used to do martial art. And at the start, when I first started, and I was literally getting punched in the face, it was challenging. It was dysregulating. It was emotionally challenging, as well as physically challenging. And learning to deal with that real time when someone is continually trying to punch you in the face is really challenging. You don't develop the skills to elegantly defend yourself or deal with that in that moment, especially if they're continuing to pummel you. What's required is someone who works with you to help train you up so that you can develop the strength, the emotional resolve, the physical durability and capability of dealing with the, in that case, physical discomfort, and learning to manage your emotions, so that by the end of my time training, being in the scenario didn't bother me, because I knew that I could deal with it. I knew that I was safe. I knew that I was able to handle myself. I knew that I had built the physical intelligence and durability to be able to navigate that space effectively. And so my emotionality wasn't bothered. It didn't drop me into emotional dysregulation. I knew I was safe, and whether that was people I was training with or people I didn't know, I knew that I was okay, and I knew that I would be okay, even if it was unfamiliar, because I had been through so many scenarios, been through so much training that nothing was really new, and I knew that I was safe. And I use this analogy because I feel that's what happens in relationships and in family dynamics, or any kind of relational dynamic, is that sometimes it can feel like continually being punched in the face emotionally. You're being dropped into this state of, I don't know if I'm safe, I don't know how to deal with this, what do I do? It's overwhelming. What's required is being with someone, whether that be a partner, friend, family member, etc., who is able to stop punching you in the face emotionally in the moment, and see that you're going through something and work with you in navigating that space in a way that allows you to develop the emotional durability to be able to regulate yourself. When in, and family is so good at doing this. Maybe you've experienced this before, if you're Hispanic, or if you're Asian, or if you're Greek, or if you're Italian, very fiery, very good at just being in emotional dysregulation and an emotional sparring. Is really what it is, and they don't give you the spaciousness to regulate and train in a way that feels safe. And that's often because they don't know how. And so what typically ends up happening is we seek spaciousness from these people who, whether consciously or unconsciously, whether deliberately or through just habit of how they know how to navigate the world their own way, they continually challenge us and lack the capability to work with us, to train with us safely in instances where we recognize, hey, I'm having an emotional response right now, and I would love your support in being able to deal with that in a way that keeps us in a safe space. Do you feel capable of doing that? It's like trying to train with someone who just doesn't want to help you get better, but just wants to keep beating you down. It's not a conducive space to healthy training. It's not a conducive space to feeling safe and regulated and trusting. It's difficult to trust that individual if you don't feel safe to go on that journey with them. And this is why when I was training, having the right people to be around who I knew that if they hit me or I hit them, it wasn't gonna escalate into something. It was met with that was amazing, great hit. Damn, you really got me good. Okay, can you help me figure out how to not get hit by you so badly? And then there were people who I would train with who just wanted to beat down, and when they were hit, they took it as an affront against themselves and came back and tried to hurt you. And that's not effective training. It's not healthy training. And this is how I see relational dynamics is, can you be with someone who is willing to be humble and go on that journey with you, and it may be the case that they just need to know that this is how they're making you feel, that this is what's going on with you, and you would love their help, because especially if it's a family member, it's not that they don't care or that they don't love, it's just they don't know any better. And there's a teaching in tantric teaching that says everyone is doing the best they can with what they know, and if they could do better, they would do better. And it's not that they lack the capacity to do better, it's just that they don't know how. And so it's an ignorance, it's an educational piece. It's said that all suffering, all mind-based suffering, is the result of ignorance to the truth of what is. And if that we can illuminate, if we can bring into conscious awareness the truth, then it can alleviate us of our suffering. And so it's an unlearning, if you will. It's an education piece. This is why I value mind yoga. It's what happens is we get born into this existence, and we navigate the world the best that we can, and we adopt strategies on how to keep ourselves safe. at a young age, we learn how to navigate unsafety, typically in family dynamics, and we develop responses that keep us safe, or did keep us safe in that time. They may not have been the healthiest, but at that time it's what worked. These understandings become ingrained into our unconscious, into unconscious beliefs. These beliefs then fuel particular thoughts. These thoughts attached to emotions. These emotions then exhibit themselves through actions, and these actions over time become behaviors. And what ends up happening is these responses become automatic. They become ingrained into our unconscious, and we end up behaving and reacting and emoting and thinking without actually being aware of what it is that we're doing. It's just how we've been ingrained, programmed to behave. And so what's required is firstly identification of these unconscious patterns, unconscious behaviors, unconscious limiting beliefs, these thought constructs in our unconscious mind, and then massaging them out, replacing them with more healthy and beneficial beliefs, so that they can then become thoughts, emotions, and actions that do serve us. And this is challenging to do. This is why, parents haven't done it, because they haven't had the awareness of doing it or the support in doing it. And this is why we struggle to do it as adults as well. It's because it's trying to use the mind to circumvent the mind. And the mind is very good at being obstinate, at wanting to not change. It feels threatened. And it's less of trying to destroy that part of ourselves, but to rehabilitate it, and learning to love that part of ourselves that was doing the best it can with what it knew, and how to help and serve and protect and keep us safe. And now that we recognize that it's actually not serving us as best as we'd like, that there is a better way, it's working with someone who can help us navigate those parts of our mind, our unconscious mind, so that we can rehabilitate and love and nurture and upgrade those parts of ourselves. And this is why I value doing this work so much. Is I've lived the life of being challenged in relationship and being challenged in familial dynamics. My mum is Sri Lankan, and there's a lot of cultural baggage and cultural trauma that comes with that, as there is with any. I'm not saying that the English side of me doesn't have that too, it just presents itself in very different ways. And I recognize Viktor Frankl's quote, "The last of the human freedoms is our ability to choose how we respond in any given situation." It's a very tantric idea that in any moment, there's only ever two choices: to abide by our programming, or to return to presence, conscious awareness. And we can choose to react to our parents or our relational opposite in the unhealthy ways that keep us in that emotional dysregularity, or we can reside in our sovereignty, in our presence, in our present awareness, in our conscious awareness, in presence, and recognize that actually, whilst you may be trying to emotionally punch me in the face, I'm actually going to maintain my boundaries and not let you drop me into emotional response. It's actually really difficult because you're very good at it, And I'm very susceptible to it, and I'm very good at reacting and responding, but I'm choosing conscious awareness. I'm choosing to not let that old programming get the better of me. I'm choosing to do this new programming instead. And as a result, I'm going to invite you to join me as a partner in this evolution and in this journey. And that may be really difficult for you. And I empathize, and I'm here to support you. And I'm not going to let you drop me into a space that I don't want to be in anymore. And you can try as hard as you want to emotionally cause damage, but I'm going to choose to not let you. And it's so empowering to be in that space. And it's really hard. It's really hard to maintain that when someone's trying very, very hard, not for necessarily consciously trying to do it, but just their programming is not used to being up against that. And it will try as hard as it can. The unconscious and our ego would rather be right than happy. It's like, no, this is how I'm supposed to respond. But if you can maintain your sovereignty, if you can maintain your emotional integrity, if you can maintain that composure and that balance and that presence, and choose to not let them, to choose to maintain your strength, because you have practiced in the safe space, and whether that be with yourself or with someone who is able to support you in going on that journey, then in the scenario of the family dynamic or in the partnership dynamic, you know that you're able to maintain your composure, and you're able to maintain your sovereignty, and wonderful things happen, because you become a beacon, you become an example, a leader in this person's life. You get to demonstrate to them that there's another way of doing it, and it may take time for them to recognize that, to respect it, to appreciate it, but in being the change, in being the lead, in showing them, in demonstrating that there's another way to do it, they'll start to see that there's another way to do it themselves, and it will be an invitation to them to make a change within themselves, even if that takes time, because if there's decades of programming, it can take a while to work its way through all of those layers and get to the nub of the essence of their nature that wants to make that change. But it will, and you get to be the example, the shining example, the beacon of light that proves to them there's a better way of doing it. And that's your gift as someone who is on this path, and is my privilege as someone who can support you in going on that journey, should you choose to do it, because you know that there's a better way, and you know that if you take the time to do the emotional sparring with someone who is a safe partner, then it doesn't matter when the world tries to attack you, because you know that you have the skill, the capability, the awareness and the resolve to be able to manage that effectively. So, yeah, good luck. And if you are interested in going on that journey and wanting some support, drop a comment if that sounds familiar. If you have family dynamics that have challenged you and you're wanting support, feel free to reach out, and I'm here for you. And know that you're not alone. Really, really know that you're not alone.